Okay, hello, Gr11s. Today is the day that we take on this monster of a poem. I know you're all scared of this one and that it seems impossible to understand, but it's actually a really good poem and it's really easy to understand once you understand where it's coming from and what it is about. The entire poem is basically an extended metaphor. The entire poem, please don't read anything in a literal sense. Everything is a metaphor, everything stands for something else. And the illusion that I'm talking about, when we talk about the figure of speech of the illusion, it means that the text that we are dealing with alludes, it points, it gets its inspiration from a different text. So obviously, this poem is an allusion to the Bible overall, and more specifically, the end times described in the Bible in the book of Revelations. So let's start off here. When this poem was written, sorry, let me just get this. This poem was written in the wake of World War One, and the world was an absolute mess. Millions and millions of civilians and soldiers lost their lives in World War One. It was an absolute massacre across the world. So many people thought that, in the wake of this war, this incredible, massive, I think it was a 4-year war, that it must be an indication of the end times, of the biblical end times specifically. For those of you who are not sure about what I'm talking about when I say the biblical end times, I'm referring to in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, the last book in the Bible, that describes the coming of the Antichrist that will wage war upon the earth until Jesus Christ returns to defeat the Antichrist and create a new earth and a new heaven. So, the entire second coming refers to both the second coming of, well, it refers to the second coming of Christ, but Christ only returns after the Antichrist has come to earth. So, with all the wars going on and all the lives lost and all the chaos in the world, you can imagine that the people of the time thought that, it could be time for revelations. It could be time for the Antichrist to make his appearance, because why else would there be so much chaos and violence on earth? Okay, so let's just put that down so that we remember it. This poem was written in the wake of World War One. Okay. And a lot of lives were lost. And the world was left destroyed, basically. Destroyed. So that is the background of our poem. That is what our poem is about. And the other thing that I want you to pay attention to is the fact that this poem can be considered what we call a dirge. Now, a dirge or a lament, it's also called a lament, okay, is basically a song. It refers to a song that is sung at a funeral. And any poem that qualifies as a dirge equals sorrow, confusion, regret, etc. So a dirge is not something that's very positive. And we can see that as we look through the poem. The images and the diction used in this poem, I'll write that here as well. Let's put it here. The images and diction used in the poem. Now remember that images are the pictures that you create in your mind from reading, and then the diction is the choice of words in the poem. We've spoken about this before. Dictionary, words. Okay, so when we talk about diction, we're talking about the specific use of words within the poem and the effect that those words have on things like mood and tone. So the images and the diction used in this poem emphasize the horrors, the absolute horrors of the war that took place and what came afterwards. And what it was like afterwards. Okay, so this is all still context. I also need to point out the second coming, as we've said, is an allusion. Let's use this here. Allusion to the apocalypse, basically. I'm sure you've all heard that word. Apocalypse from the Bible. Okay. So even when we start off with the title itself, the second coming, those words and that phrase is so well known, even for people who are not Christian. Most of us know that if we refer to the second coming, we are referring to Jesus Christ coming back to earth. So immediately seeing the second coming, at first one might think that it would be a positive poem, a poem of the return of Christ and how he establishes his kingdom. However, we read this and then find out that this poem is the exact opposite. It's talking about the second coming, but before the second coming of Christ comes the Antichrist first. And that's what he talks about in this poem, is how society falls apart and how the Antichrist makes his appearance. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to just have to highlight those so that we can set them apart from the notes that I'll be making. There are a lot of notes for this poem, but it's not too difficult. All right, I just want to highlight this here so that you can see this is the context of our poem. This is what our poem is about overall. Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay. Now we're going to go line by line and we're going to see what is happening here. Okay. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Now, first of all, a gyre is like a tornado, basically. It's a circular, a spiral movement. I like to describe it as a tornado, basically, because a widening gyre, it's a spinning motion. So if it starts here at the bottom, it'll start small and it'll grow and it will grow, and the further it grows, the more out of control it gets. The further it spirals, the further it goes from the center or the starting point. So this is a gyre. When we speak about gyre, this is what we're talking about. So that's spinning, that tornado, basically. And it doesn't just say that there's a tornado or a gyre spinning, but it is in fact telling us that it is widening, which means that it is getting worse. The further it spirals outwards, the worse it gets. Okay. When we talk about the falcon that cannot hear the falconer, the metaphor here for falcon is society, people in general, all across the world, not just specifically one society. Although Yeats was from England and he might have written it from that point of view, the poem is still applicable to the entire world. It is still applicable to our times today, even. Okay, so the falcon is society, and the falconer would be the natural order of things. And when I say the natural order of things, I am talking about, normal life, things going on the same as it does, no issues, no wars, or if there are issues, they are solvable. It's just a natural order. The natural world continues on, people continue on within that natural world. So the falconer is all of those things. The falconer represents the natural world, or the natural order of things. It can also refer to God, because when we are talking about the falcon, first I've found out that some people don't know what a falcon or a falconer is. Falcon is a bird. It's a sorry, I've forgotten the term now. A falcon is, the type of birds with the sharp claws that people keep. They sit in their arms and then they'll let the falcon fly off and catch a mouse and then come back to their owner. They hunt. And then the falconer is the owner. He's the person that trains the falcon, that handles the falcon. So if the falcon represents society, then the falconer represents the natural order of things, or it represents God. The falcon in its singularity can refer to any one person that now is moving away and can no longer hear, is no longer connected to the falconer. Let's put that here. Cannot hear, no longer connected. Okay. So all of that forms part of the widening gyre. So the falcon is getting swept up by the widening gyre, the tornado, and the further the falcon is taken away from the center of the gyre, the less it can hear the words of the natural order or the words of God. The falcon, people are no longer following the falconer or God. Okay, we are going to move on. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Okay, so when it says that things fall apart, it means that, well, everything has fallen apart. The natural order of things that we were speaking about here, it has all fallen apart. Okay, natural order is gone. Gone. The center cannot hold, and especially when it speaks about that center, it once again reminds us of the Jaya. At the center, the one can still practice control, but the further you move out, the less control you have. And when it says that the center cannot hold, it means that everything is going from the center of the Jaya, moving outwards, moving out of control. Nothing in the center is steady anymore. Everything is circling out of control. Okay. Let's put that down. Okay. Everything is circling out of control in society. It seems like there's no way to go because the center cannot hold. It is breaking down. There's a breakdown in society. Okay. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Okay, so anarchy, the word we understand as chaos, which can take place due to a lack of government control. So you imagine after World War I, people are dead, places are destroyed. Anyone who's still alive is probably not happy with the state of things. So when there is anarchy, it means that there is absolute chaos and disorder. And that is what they had to deal with after World War I. And he says that's all that's going on in the world. That's everything that is happening in the world. It's just this utter chaos. Everything has gone haywire. There was... Sorry, I'm just trying to find my place. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I lost my place. Yeah, the natural order of the world and of society has been dumped into complete disarray. Has been dumped into disarray. All right. Where am I? Okay, the blood-dim tide is loosed. Let me just stop there before I go on. The blood-dimmed tide is loose. So when we talk about blood-dimmed, it means basically that everything in the whole world was, so to say, covered in blood from the world. In fact, from the war. In fact, things were so bad that this blood color is dimming everything else. It makes everything else unclear. That is how much blood, in other words, bloodshed, in other words, killing, took place. So let me just put those two separately. Okay, so blood refers to all the deaths that have taken place because of the war. And then the dimmed means that there is so much of it. It was so bad that everything else seemed to disappear. It was so difficult to find any good in the world after the war that everything just seemed so negative. I really encourage you guys to go look up the statistics of how many deaths occurred in World War One, or go ask your history teacher. They will tell you it was an absolute massacre. Okay, let's continue. Blood and Tide is loose, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. So this line carries on to the next line, where he says that, okay, first of all, loosed means it's everywhere. It has been set free. All right, everywhere it has been set free. It has been loosed. Oh, there it says everywhere. And everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. So there's so much death and bloodshed that no part of society's innocence was spared. Everything was destroyed. So everything that makes society good, and kept in working order is now gone. It has probably been drowned out by the tide, by this bloody tide. It has been drowned out. It's been drowned in this bloody tide. Okay, so there is no more innocence left in the world. Or it doesn't seem that way. Seems like there is no innocence left. Everyone has been touched by war, and as soon as you have been touched or affected in any sort of way by such a great, accident, I don't want to call it an accident, but, so much killing, if you've been affected by it in any sort of way, it does come to the point where you might feel that that's all that there is. How can there be any good left in the world after what I have seen and what I have experienced? Okay, so it seems that there is nothing good left in the world. Okay. And then the best thing is it continues on to say that the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So after this that we've discussed, we move over to these two lines, and these two lines come from that line. They're all connected. Okay, so these three lines go together. The best lack all conviction. So first of all, the best, we are talking about people here. So these are good people. Good people are the best. Okay. Now, the best of people, the good people, they don't have any conviction. They lack, they don't have it. all conviction. Now, what is conviction? Conviction is the belief in, well, belief in anything, but anyone who has a conviction of something is that they believe in it, because that is just how things are. So people who are good would have a conviction of doing good, of spreading good. They would believe, their conviction would be that the world should be a good place. Let's work together to ensure that our world becomes a better place. And these good people have lost that. They have lost their will to continue doing good because of everything that has happened, because of the utter destruction that took place all across the globe. Okay, so the good people, they are not acting. They are not doing anything. It's basically saying that all the good people have given up. Okay, so the good people have given up. And then on the other side of the coin, unfortunately, while the worst of people are full of passionate intensity. So while the good people have given up hope and they're not acting, they're not doing anything, the worst of people, bad people, people who do bad things, the worst of people are full of passionate intensity. And what that means is that they are passionate in their intent to do bad, to cause further harm to the world and to other people. Now, the way that we can look at this, the best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Speaking again about the biblical end times, it is said that, okay, obviously before Christ returns, the Antichrist will be the ruler of the world. And it is at this time, once people perhaps start recognizing the Antichrist for who he is, they might give up, and the bad people will be encouraged to continue doing the work of the Antichrist in preparation for the big battle that is coming with Christ once he returns. Okay, sorry, I do pause and start these videos as needed. So if the patching doesn't quite make sense, then you understand. I paused the video. Okay, anyway, back to the actual poem. Please excuse what happened here. I missed this line when I copied from the poem, so I added it in here. That is where it goes. Okay, surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. All right, so let's just focus on that first before we move on with what the speaker sees in his mind. Okay. When he says that surely some revelation is at hand, it is very interesting that he calls it a revelation. Now, first of all, a revelation is something that is revealed. Okay, revelation equals revealed. And that is the book in the Bible that reveals the end times. It reveals the end times. And once again, we are talking about the book of Revelations. Okay, so some revelation is at hand. This revelation obviously is a direct reference to the book of Revelations that is in the Bible. Surely the second coming is at hand. Obviously, the second coming, we're talking about the second coming of Christ. What happens here, if we look at, wait, let me get the other pen. If we look at this one here, surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. And basically what they are saying here, once again, that people may be so convinced that, with the state of the world after the war, that they must be close to the second coming of Christ. We all know, we're all waiting. You see it in the media, you hear people talk about it all the time, that the world will be in an utter state of chaos, of death, bloodshed, and it is around those times that we turn to the Bible and we try and figure out what the book of Revelations is telling us, and we try and figure out if we are living in the end times or not. It has been happening for centuries, ever since Christ was born. People have been talking about the end times, and we're still here talking about the end times. So the people here, when they are talking about surely the second coming is at hand, the second coming, all right? Let's put it here. People may be so convinced that with the state of the world, that it must be close to the second coming of Christ. I'm just going to stop there. You know what I'm talking about. Must be coming close. The second coming is close. The second coming of Christ is close. Notice how the speaker or the poet, he emphasizes the words the second coming, and again here, and emphasizes them by using capital letters. So he's not just talking about the second coming of anyone or of whatever. He's talking about the actual second coming, the biblical second coming. Okay. Capital letters are used to refer to specifically the Bible's second coming. Okay. All right, let's move on. The second coming. Oh, watch that that one as well. Okay. The rest of the line, hardly are those words out. Hardly has he said those words. When a vast image out of spiritus mundi troubles my sight. Okay, let's stop there because this one and this one go together. Okay. Vast means a detailed, large, detailed image that we're talking about here. Let's say large image out of spiritus mundi. Now, spiritus mundi is described as being a collective consciousness of the world or all the people around the world. It is like a spiritual type of knowing that the people have across the world. Yeah, so it's almost like it's this unknown, unspoken knowledge that everybody has within them, and that everybody can experience within them, and just automatically know within them. So it's almost as if he's tapping into world knowledge when he sees this vision in front of his eyes. Please note that this image that they are speaking about here is actually a vision. A vision of what is, or a vision of the future. Okay. So he sees this large vision out of the collective consciousness of humankind. Okay. Collective consciousness of humankind. Okay. So he has this vision out of this collective consciousness of everybody that is alive. And what this vision consists of, first of all, before we talk about what's in the vision, he specifically points out that the vision troubles his sight. So what he sees bothers him tremendously. Okay. What he sees bothers him greatly, and please just again remember when he says sight, it is not physical, it is his vision. I'm going to write it again. It's a vision. It is not literal. It's in his mind. I wouldn't say that it's his imagination, because when they talk about spiritus mundi, that's an actual thing, a collective consciousness or collective knowledge that people all over the world share. But when he talks about sight, he is talking about that vision of what he sees. It's not physical sight with your eyes. Okay. So let's talk about what he sees now in this vision. He says, somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. Let's just stop there for a second. And we'll put these two lines together. Okay, so he sees in the desert a shape with a lion body and the head of a man. Now, first of all, For any of you that do tourism, you might recognize this one. It is actually the Sphinx that he is, oops, there's an ROI, Sphinx, that he is talking about. Okay, now the Sphinx is that image in, or not that image, it's that statue, that massive statue in Egypt, where the pyramids are, right in front of the three pyramids in Giza. There is a statue, a massive statue, and that statue consists of a lion's body and the head of a pharaoh on top of the lion body. So it's basically half man, half lion. But this specifically, what he sees, the shape with a lion body and the head of a man, this is the Sphinx that he's talking about. Now, why would he refer to, obviously also, he is talking about, when he talks about the shape of a lion body and the head of a man, he's talking about the Antichrist. Okay. Now, for what reason would we call the Sphinx or refer to the Sphinx as the Antichrist? Now, there could be a few reasons. We can look at one or two of them. Now, the thing about Egypt is that you must remember once again, for those of you who don't remember your Bible, the Israelites. Okay, the Israelites were God's chosen people, and they were kept as slaves in Egypt until they left Egypt with the aid of Moses and God sending the 10 plagues down upon Egypt. And then once they leave Egypt and they get to the Red Sea, the Pharaoh and his men were upon them. So God parted the waters of the Red Sea and let the Israelites through. And then once the Egyptian army tried to pass through the Red Sea, the waters came back together and they drowned. In short, that's the story. So if we are talking about, the desert, and we're talking about the Sphinx, the Antichrist, why Egypt? Why the Sphinx? Because it was the place where the Israelites suffered. They were slaves, they were persecuted. They lived a hell of a life in Egypt. Okay, so if we are connecting Egypt to the Antichrist, and we are connecting the Israelites to Jesus Christ, as they should be, then we understand why this beast, this Antichrist, is coming from Egypt. Okay. It continues here where it describes the beast, somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. We've said that is the Sphinx. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. So this means that if this beast has a blank gaze and it is pitiless, it is without pity. So all in all, his gaze is uncaring. It is callous, meaning that obviously there's no empathy and he doesn't show any emotion, something that we can equate to, I don't know, a murderer, for example. Okay, so blank is nothing. Nothing. No emotion. No care. And pitiless means he has no empathy. And he believes that he is better than everyone. Okay. Yes, no pity, no empathy, no emotion, no care. Of course, once again, here, I'm going to keep on reminding you this is the Antichrist that is being described. We keep on referring to the Sphinx or this shape with lion body and head of a man. We keep on referring to it as the beast because number one, that's pretty much what it is. And number two, once again, in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, the Antichrist is described as the beast. You've heard about the numbers 666. That is the sign of the beast that will appear in the end times. So saying that the Antichrist is the beast, it is very accurate. Beast from the Bible. So this whole poem is very much, well, as I say, it's an allusion to the Bible, to the book of Revelations of the Bible. All right. Continuing, it's moving, gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. Okay. Now, the beast moving its slow thighs, when he's moving slowly, sorry, let me just find it here. Sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. All right. It's moving its slow thighs. It is taking its time. Taking its time. I have something else to say about this slow movement, but I'll put that in later. Taking its time to arrive. While all about it, real shadows of indignant desert birds. Okay, now reeling means to lurch violently. In other words, the birds, as soon as the Sphinx or the beast started moving, the desert birds were bothered. They suddenly shot up in the air. They were moving around the beast, almost like a foreshadowing or a premonition that something bad, something shadowy is coming. The other thing about birds and the desert is that the type of birds that you usually get in the desert are scavengers. In other words, they are most likely vultures. Vultures eat the dead. That is their diet. They eat the dead. So we are talking about real is to, let's say, to move quickly. move quickly. The shadows, obviously, because the birds are flying. So it's their shadows cast on the sands of the desert. They are indignant, which means that they feel wronged. They feel like they've been wronged and they're angry about it. It's like they're saying, how dare you disturb us? That's what the birds are basically saying. And then read for this one because it's quite important. Desert birds. Okay. So we're going to call, we call them carry-on birds, but just to be, make it easy, we're going to call them simply vultures. Okay. And vultures, known for eating the dead. So if the vultures, oh, sorry about that. If the vultures, let me just put that out. If the vultures are eating the dead, that means that there has to be a lot of dead available for them to eat, which once again brings us back to the mass amount of deaths during the war. So if we look at this, I'll put it in here. Okay. In order for the vultures to eat, there must be a lot of death. I'm going to say death. And this is due to the war. Okay. Now, okay, real shadows of the indignant desert birds. And the next line, the speaker says the darkness drops again, which means that his vision of the future or his vision of what is currently happening ends. That's when he says the darkness drops again. It just means that his vision has now ended. He doesn't see this beast in the desert anymore. It was something that he saw in his mind that came out of the collective consciousness, the spiritus mundi. That was the vision he had of the beast, and now the vision has ended again. He describes it as the darkness drops again. Okay, so we're simply going to say here that the vision has ended. But now I know. Even though his vision has ended, he now knows, he understands what is to come. Okay. And he understands where it comes from. Because when he talks about it in line 18, oh sorry, that's actually now line 19 because I skipped a line. Okay, when he says that 20 centuries of stony sleep, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. Okay, let's start here. 20 centuries. Let's do some math. Okay. If Christ was born in the year 0 AD, right? That is when Christ was born. So from Christ's birth to where we are now, which is 2024, we are in the 21st century. So when the war took place in 1918, 1914 to 1918, something like that, when the war took place, it was in the 1900s, and the 1900s equal the 20th century. So when he talks about 20 centuries, he's talking about the that's the war, sorry, that's in the 20th century. So from Christ's birth to the 1900s is 20 centuries. So when he talks about 20 centuries, that is how long since Christ was born. Okay. It has been 20 centuries since Christ was born. Okay. Let's talk about stony sleep. Obviously, sleep refers to the fact that he has not appeared, he's been gone, he's been hiding. But what I really want to talk about is the stony part. I'll just say been away. Okay. The stony part I find interesting for a few reasons, because first of all, the Sphinx, now I'm spelling it the other way. The Sphinx is built out of stone, so it is stony. But why go to the lengths of mentioning that he had a stony sleep? All right, the other meaning we can look at then for stony would be the same thing they say when they talk about the blank and pitiless gaze. He is cold. Stone is cold. So cold or without feeling or emotion. Okay. Okay. The 20th centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. Sorry, one thing that I didn't mention here, when they are talking about this centuries of stony sleep, they are talking about the sleep of the beast. I'm going to say the beast because the beast can both refer to the Sphinx as well as the Antichrist, both known as the beast. Okay, when they say that the beast was vexed to nightmare, vexed to nightmare, vexed means extremely bothered, annoyed, irritated. Okay. Annoyed. He was annoyed, irritated when he was waking up to the world as a nightmare. But not only was the world a nightmare, but also the beast himself. The beast himself can be seen as a nightmare that brings us nightmarish experiences on earth. Okay. Then a rocking cradle. Now, where would we get this rocking cradle from? If we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about the beast. The rocking cradle, for those of you sharp enough, should know that it refers to Christ's cradle. When he was born. Well, it wasn't really a cradle, but a cradle still refers to an infant. And we are talking about Christ here. When he was an infant, when he was born. Initially. Second coming hasn't happened yet. Well, at least according to what the Bible describes, we have not experienced the second coming yet. We'll leave that to the experts. Okay. And what rough beast? It's our come at last. Again, you see that beast. The beast. And remember the beast. And its mark shall be 666 on your hand or on your forehead. It's our come at last, which means it's finally time for the Antichrist to come to earth. Or for the Antichrist to be born. Remember, the Antichrist is supposed to be a man as well. He is... The story in the Bible is that when the Antichrist is born, as he grows up, he is really a false prophet. People will think that he is basically like Jesus Christ, but he is not. He is the Antichrist. And he will lead the world astray. He will basically turn the world into a living nightmare when people least expected, because they trusted him. They thought he was the good guy. And then Jesus returns to wage war with the Antichrist and win and regain his sovereignty over the people of the earth. Okay, finally time for the Antichrist to, let's say, to come into the world. Okay. Okay, obviously they call him the rough beast because he is, let's say that he is relentless. It means that he will go all out to do what he believes he has to do, which is evil, basically. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Okay, obviously, like I said, just like Christ and any other man, the Antichrist has to be born. He will come as a man. And not just as a man, but as a false prophet. I must admit that this poem takes quite a bit of knowledge of the Bible, or at least knowledge of the book of Revelations to analyze properly. But if you haven't read the Bible, I suggest you go and do it at least once in your life. Okay, born. He is slouching. He is slouching, which indicates that he is moving slowly. His back is not straight, which is what slouching is. It means that he's hunched over, moving slowly, hunched over. And what this kind of posture gives us is that he seems to be lazy. And it's not that he is lazy just for the sake of being lazy, or lazy because he doesn't want to do a task, but rather he feels slow or lazy. It might indicate that he is simply taking his time to get the job done or to get to where he needs to be. And why this is important to know and understand is because it means that he doesn't care. It means that, if someone thinks that they have all the time in the world to do what they have to do, they come to school at 8:30 in the morning after they've been to the shop and they've walked around a little bit. It's not that you're necessarily lazy to get to school. It is just that you don't care. So I'm going to put that down here as just simply uncaring. And that is also one of the words that would describe the beast. Uncaring, no emotion. Okay. Then the big one here, Bethlehem. Why Bethlehem? And if you can't answer why Bethlehem, I'm a little concerned. I'm going to put that one here. Okay, obviously Bethlehem is where Christ was born. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, in a stable, in a manger. By the way, for those of you who don't know what a manger is, it's that structure that feed or water is placed into for the livestock to eat and drink out of, and that is all they had as a cradle. So Bethlehem is where Christ was born. And to say that the beast is moving towards Bethlehem to be born is quite blasphemous. Okay, the beast being born here is blasphemous. So for those of you who don't know what blasphemy is when you speak ill of the Christian faith. For example, the Jews, if a Jew, a person of Judaism, the faith, if you speak out against them, it is called anti-Semitism. So if you speak out against them, you are being anti-Semitic. Now, the same is here when we talk about blasphemous or blasphemy or blaspheme. When you blaspheme, you are talking badly about the Christian faith. If you are blasphemous, you're that type of person that would do something like that. Blasphemy is the noun. Okay, so it is blasphemous for the beast to be born in Bethlehem because Bethlehem is connected to Christ. So to say the beast was born in Bethlehem is just a big no-no. It's also important, as we have said before, that the Antichrist, because he is said to be an anti-prophet, Antichrist is false prophet. It will or should eventually happen that when the second coming happens, it is said that people will look upon him like they looked upon Jesus. People will be fooled into thinking that he is like Jesus. Okay. And because of that connection with Jesus, that is why we use Bethlehem. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. The false prophet, the Antichrist, is being equated with Jesus that was born in Bethlehem, which again is very blasphemous. To compare Jesus to the beast is a very bad thing. Let's just write here in brackets, due to birth in Bethlehem. The other consideration for Bethlehem is that because of the birth of Jesus Christ in Bethlehem, Bethlehem is equated, okay, because Christ was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is equated with, it means that we are equaling Bethlehem with, let's say, peace, prosperity, peace, prosperity, and I can't remember what else I wanted to say now. So because Christ was born in Bethlehem, Bethlehem is equated with peace, and so when we say that the beast is moving towards Bethlehem, that means that the beast is on his way to destroy this peace and prosperity. Still not the right word that I'm looking for, but I can't remember now. Okay. Let me just center this page a bit for you so that you can see properly. Okay. Okay, I do believe that is everything that we needed to look at. Like I said, the comment section in each video is open for specific questions on the poetry, on that specific poem. Don't be worried or scared to ask a question. It might be a question that someone else also wants to ask. And it is through questions that we learn more and we help each other and we grow as academics. Okay. Thank you. That's it for the second coming.